In your world, what is the meeting after the meeting? What is the meeting that occurs after the main meeting? This is a powerful pro insider tip that I was taught years ago by one of the most successful multi-millionaire entrepreneurs I've ever had the pleasure of knowing and working with. And he said, Michael, I don't care if you're coaching hockey, I don't care if you're a father, I don't care if you're a husband, I don't care if you're a business owner, entrepreneur, I don't care if you're running the Rotary Club meeting, working at a charity. He says what's most important when it comes to success is the meeting after the meeting. So let me explain this badass concept. There's winning cultures and there's losing cultures. There's winning teams and there's losing teams. There's winning families and there's losing families. There's winning schools and there's losing schools. There's winning businesses, winning charitable organizations, and there's losing organizations. It all comes down to winners aren't losers, losers aren't winners. And if you've looked at any of the great rebuilds, culture rebuilds in business, whether it was Steve Jobs returning to Apple after he had been fired a few years earlier and Apple had sunk into the toilet without Jobs' leadership. They beg him to come back. He cuts out all the nonsense, gets rid of all the products that they're not selling. He takes a swift sword, he takes a machete to the products. They do one or two things. He makes Apple the juggernaut that it is today. That's a culture shift that was created by the meetings after the meetings. You see it in another business example is what Elon Musk is doing today with Twitter. I'm not sure if he can save that swamp, but if anybody can, he's the man, he's a turnaround king. He goes in there, he swift swords all the people that don't want to work. He gets rid of all the fat and waste. And now he's turning it into a lean, mean, hopefully sometime soon, profitable machine. You watch the same thing happen with the great coaches in sports. For years, NFL teams in disarray, losing cultures, losing franchises would hire, they'd make a deal with the devil and hire Hall of Fame head coach Bill Parcells. Well, Parcells was a turnaround wizard. He would come into a place like the New York Jets. He would come into a place like the New England Patriots. This is before Belichick. These teams are 1-15 when he goes to the Jets. You know, the Patriots are 1-15 when Parcells goes. So he's the turnaround king. And within a handful of years, these teams are Super Bowl contenders. So he's literally cleaning house. He's literally getting rid of all the losers and replacing them with as many winners, champions, lions, and kings as he can, including trainers, including doctors, medical staff, assistant coaches, everybody and anybody. Out with the losers, in with the winners. You see it. I saw a good example I was sharing yesterday with my champion Mastermind members was the story of the New York Rangers. The New York Rangers had not won a Stanley Cup since 1940. 1940. That made them the longest original six team to go between championships. And this was in 1994. They had finished in first place the year before in the regular season, of course, and had 110 plus points. And then they had lost out, of course, in the playoffs. Winners aren't losers, losers aren't winners. And no matter what they did in New York, they couldn't get over the hump. They couldn't win another Stanley Cup. Good morning. A lot of what you see in Toronto now with the Maple Leafs, they haven't won a cup since 1967. Losers aren't winners. So what happened in New York is like in New England and with the Jets. It's like bringing Steve Jobs back. It's like selling your business to Elon Musk. Is they finally made a deal with the devil to get the job done. And in 1994, the Rangers fired their head coach, and in the summer, in the off season, they hired Iron Mike Kennan. And if you know anything about hockey, good morning. If you know anything about winning, of course, Iron Mike is one of my favorite all-time sports coaches. He is certainly not everybody's cup of whiskey. He certainly has a short expiry date. He's like a Buddy Ryan. He's like a Mike Ditka. He's a taskmaster who does nothing but win. And of course, he grates on the people. He grates on the players. And all the greats have an expiry date. There's very few exceptions that can do what a Bill Belichick does. But that's because Belichick has ultimate power. Robert Kraft has entitled him with ultimate power so he can do as he wants, and the players know it. In Mike Keenan's case, he was brought in by MSG to win a Stanley Cup, period. So they made a deal with the devil and they brought in Iron Mike Kennan. And what transpired over the next 12 months was just incredible, because he literally, even though it was 1 year, the year before, you have to understand, he had this team that had won the regular season title, and they were proud of it, right? Oh, we had 110 points last year. We just weren't able to do it in the playoffs. That's how losers talk. Mike Kennan came in there and he had none of it. He was like Jimmy Johnson taking over the Dallas Cowboys, where it's just, let's take a broom to this place. So Kennan, the very first order of business for him was they had Mark Messier as their captain in New York. And the reason Mark Messier is one of the greatest leaders in sports history, any sport. Messier won 5 Stanley Cups in Edmonton with Wayne Gretzky. But the thing about Edmonton is everybody looked at that. That's Gretzky's team, right? So even though Messier won 5 Stanley Cups, it was just like Tom Brady. He wanted to get out of Gretzky's shadow, and he wanted to prove to the whole world, to all the critics and all the doubters, that he could lead his own team to a Stanley Cup, to a world championship. That's exactly what Tom Brady did by moving to Tampa. I mean, him and Belichick won the six Super Bowls together, but what's the whisper? The whisper is always, well, you know, Belichick, Brady, Belichick. He couldn't have won without Bill. So Brady, being a proud cleaner, is the type of guy who's like, I'm going to go to Tampa. I'm going to do the impossible, and I'm going to prove all my critics and all my doubters wrong, and that I can win a Super Bowl of my own. So Brady goes to Tampa and he does exactly that. He surrounds himself with other winners. He's got a high-level head coach, and he wins his 7th, count 'em, 7th Super Bowl ring. So really, really incredible, where winners aren't losers. So Kennan in New York, he said, you know, the secret was Mark Messier. He said, you know, I'm going to get rid of most everybody else, but the secret is Mark Messier, because he's a proven champion and he's still hungry to win another title, to prove that he can do something outside of Wayne Gretzky's shadow. So what did Kennan do? Kennan used him as the meeting after the meeting guy. He used Messier, one of the greatest leaders in sports history, for the meeting after the meeting. Well, what does that mean? Well, what that means is Kennan knew he had to broom 85% of those players. Didn't matter that they were in first place the year before. They won the President's Trophy, which is, good morning, regular season. But that doesn't mean anything. That there's no rings for that. Nobody remembers that. So he knew he had a whole bunch of players that crumble when it matters. He had a whole bunch of players that were no good when it mattered. As Parcells would say, horse shit when it matters. So what did he do? He used Messier, and he enlisted Messier. Like Mark's all in on this, right? Keenan's all in and Mark Messier's all in. When you get your number one and number two people all in, when you get your executive assistant or your CEO or your COO all in, when you get your best friend's secret weapon all in, when you get your kids all in on whatever championship you're chasing, it makes all the difference in the world. If you try to accomplish something with toe in the water, when you have the most important people in your life aren't with you, you know, they're sort of, but not really. You can't win unless you're all in, unless you burn the boats, burn the ships. You just can't. So Kennan sold Messier on the entire concept, on the entire process, and he got Messier to go all in, to burn the ships and to take the island in 1994. The year was 1994. So throughout that year, it was the Kennan Messier show. And when I talk about the meeting after the meeting, what I'm talking about, in losing cultures, you'll have the coach, the CEO, the leader, whoever it is. It can be in a family, it can be in a business, it could be in a church, for God's sakes. And the person stands up and they talk about something important. You know, this is important for us to have a chance to win. In losing cultures, the meeting after the meeting goes like this. Well, I don't know what's his problem or why he wants us to do that. That we never did that before. That seems like a lot of, they're just, the meeting after the meeting is whining, complaining, and excuses. And that's how losing is done. Whining leads to complaining leads to excuses, and excuses lead to losing. That's 80% of NFL teams, that's 80% of NHL teams, that's 80% of Major League Baseball teams, 80% of high-tech businesses, 80% of families, 80% of churches, 80% of charities, 80% of any group. The meeting after the meeting is whining, complaining, excuse making. What's her problem? What's his problem? Not all in, no boats burned, and not all in. The meeting after the meeting is toxic. In championship cultures, which is top 5%, top 4%, I say top 1%, is Mike Kennan as an example. Winners love Kennan. Winners and champions love Kennan. And why do they love Kennan? Because, he's a prickly cactus. They love him because they want to win. They understand that he has the formula to win. They want it, they'll tolerate it. They'll tolerate it short term to get another ring on their finger. They'll tolerate Nick Saban to win a national title. They'll tolerate Bill Belichick to win a national title. They'll tolerate Pat Riley to win a 5th NBA championship. They'll tolerate Phil Jackson. They'll tolerate Scotty Bowman. They'll tolerate to win. So with Kennan, winners love Kennan. Messier loved Kennan. The guys they added to the team love Kennan. He brought in champions. He brought in guys that had won cups before. And losers despise guys like Mike Kennan. Losers despise Bill Belichick. Losers despise Nick Saban. Losers despise Elon Musk. Losers despised Henry Ford. Losers despised Andrew Carnegie. Just go down the list. Losers aren't winners and winners aren't losers. So everybody that was brought into New York bought in. Everybody that didn't buy in was shown the door. But the interesting thing is what was Messier's job? Messier was like the COO of that company now. His job was to control the meeting after the meeting. So Kennan goes in there on a typical day, very, very hard, difficult, authoritarian guy. Good morning. To play for. And he calls guys out. If a guy didn't play well, like he's going to call a Brian Leach out. He's going to trade a Mike Gardner. He's going to get rid of losers. He's going to bring in winners. Incredibly candid person. Clear as kind. Unclear as unkind. Well, you know what? You can hurt a lot of feelings in a day when you're as prickly as Iron Mike. So, you know, he stands in there in the locker room and he calls this guy out and he demands that the team plays better defense and they need to work harder and this guy needs to do a better job. You know, it holds guys, they're accountable. They're being held accountable. The Rangers Country Club is over for now. So it's really critical after that meeting, if the culture remains the same as a losing culture, then what's after those meetings? Bitching, whining, complaining, excuse making, and all that stuff leads to what? It leads to losing. So you have a warrior, you have a cleaner, you have a proven champion like Messier. After every one of those locker room meetings, every video session, every power play meeting, in the hotels, on the planes, you have a guy that handles the second meeting. I call it carrying the message to Garcia. He's the extension. He's an extension of Kennan, or he's like Brady. He's an extension of Belichick, or he's like a Heisman Trophy winner for Saban. He's the extension. You know, Warren Buffett has Charlie. Charlie has Warren. The meeting after the meeting. So instead of guys sitting around and bitching and complaining about Kennan throughout the year, Mark Messier massages all those situations. In a lot of cases, he says to his brothers, his teammates, suck it the fuck up. We're here for one reason. We're here for one reason, which is to lift that cup. And it's interesting because as soon as they get that straight, that's the meeting after the meeting. So he quashes that stuff. He quashes the whining. He quashes the complaining. He quashes the losing mentality. And the thing about having a guy like Messier or having a guy like Brady is they can also give feedback to the coach and general manager about who has to go. Who has to go. Winners aren't losers. Losers aren't winners. So I know for a fact that Mark Messier and Mike Kennan worked together with the Swift Sword to get rid of a lot of guys who simply couldn't help the team win. And they also worked together to fill that locker room with champions, to literally fill that locker room with former captains, former Stanley Cup winners, just like Riley did with the Lakers, just like Jimmy Johnson did with the Cowboys, just like, you know, Jobs did at Apple, just like Bezos did at Amazon, is surround yourself with winners for the meeting after the meeting. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, instead of the bitching and complaining and excuse making, after Kennan talks every day or whatever he does, addresses the team, you have a force so strong inside your locker room, inside your family, inside your home, inside your business. And he's just an extension of the CEO leader, where he's like, you know what? He's right. He's right. He's won a Stanley Cup. He's won a Canada Cup. He's won an Olympic gold. He knows how to win. So instead of bitching and whining and complaining and making excuses, he's like, let's go do the work. And you have to have a powerful man or woman that has that respect, like Mark Messier. He comes into that locker room with ultimate respect because he's got 5 rings. He's already got 5 rings. And everybody knows that his heart is pure because he's in there to win a 6. It's the only reason he's there. So they know he's there for the right reasons. Same for Brady going to Tampa. You're going into a franchise that hasn't won a Super Bowl in, 2 decades? But it's a losing culture. And all of a sudden, Tom Brady arrives. And then all of a sudden, they start making trades to bring in more high-quality talent and proven winners. You know, they get Gronk to come out of retirement. They get all these guys around him, even short-term fixes, you know, just to get the job done. And it's because, man, it's the meeting after the meeting. So what's happening in your business? As an example, you have a meeting with your staff. What's the meeting after the meeting? Is everybody standing outside, you know, on their phones, bitching and complaining about the new rule or the new goals or the new standards? Or, you know, what's he thinking about today? Has he been to another Tony Robbins seminar? Will this pass? We've heard this all before. Or do you have what I've always had in business? With McLean Insurance, I had the little General Sandra Challenger. She was a phenomenal COO. She managed and babysat 23 people at my agency, babysat 23 people. She had a 10-year military background, and the people behind her back called her, affectionately to me, the little general. And that's the feedback I want. She was an ass kicker in a different way than I was. She was the meeting after the meeting. I would be upset about response or good morning, or about how some marketing went, or maybe one of my good clients didn't get the service they deserved, or maybe a phone call wasn't returned, whatever it was. And I would vent to Sandra. You know, I'm Parcells, I'm Bill Belichick, I'm Steve Jobs, I'm Elon Musk. I'm like, listen, make sure that's fixed. Make sure that's fixed. What's her job? Her job is to make sure it's fixed. And she was calmer than I was. She had the perfect personality for management of people. I call it babysitting. And she got the most out of all of our people. She was the meeting after the meeting. She was my Mark Messier. She was my Tom Brady. Same thing here, like we only have a tiny little company with Leanne and Mark, but the meeting after the meeting is important. See, Mark is all in because I've proven myself through him playing for me in Perth for 4 years. Good morning, being one of my captains. And then he's worked for me for another, 3 years since. And he understands that I have the formula for winning in business and in sports. So he's all in. So that's contagious. When a person like Leanne joins our company a year and a half ago, she's new, she doesn't know, she's never seen something run like this. And all of a sudden, it really helps with any doubt that she has from day to day when Mark's there for the meeting after the meeting. She's there, he's there to support her when she's like, I don't know if I'm doing a good job. You know, Michael's upset with me. He's mad about this. I've never had to, I've never seen marketing like this. Am I doing a good job? Am I going to get fired? The meeting after the meeting, where Mark has the experience and the leadership to say, you know what? Don't worry about that. Focus on this. And this is the end goal. And that's leadership. That's leadership. That's leadership. I've been in Marc Andre's shoes many times as a former player and as an assistant coach, where I was the meeting after the meeting guy. It wasn't my cup of tea, but I was in that situation and I did a good job. The meeting after the meeting, where I'm like, listen, we have a job to do. Okay, that's just passion that he's showing. He's all in, and now Leanne's in a position where she can handle, if we added some more employees, she would be the meeting after the meeting. Because now she's a year and a half in. She's growing personally, she's growing professionally. She gets it. I understand her, she understands me, she understands Mark, all that kind of stuff. The meeting after the meeting. Not like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? I'm scrambling, I'm gonna get fired. Those days are mostly gone. The meeting after the meeting. So I think the New York Rangers, they won the cup in '94 that year. And it was turmoil the entire year. Guys being cut, being traded, bringing in new players. But you know the two things that never changed? Kennan and Messier. The meeting and the meeting after the meeting. New guys come in, Kennan talks, Messier delivers it. Okay, guys get traded, Kennan talks, delivers the message, delivers the mission. Messier makes sure the meeting after the meeting is the same. And for the first time since 1940, in 1994, the Rangers lift the Stanley Cup. First time since 1940, never won it again. Kennan left after that season. They couldn't tolerate Iron Mike for any longer, and he couldn't tolerate them. A big corporation. He thought that Neil Smith, the general manager, had never won anything in his life. He thought he was the ultimate corporate pussy. So it was a one-year deal to win a cup, to win it in an important city like New York, to win it on an important stage like Madison Square Garden, and he delivered. They made a deal with the devil, and he delivered. Winners love Kennan. Losers hate Kennan. Winners love Elon Musk. Losers hate Elon Musk. Winners love Henry Ford. Losers hate Henry Ford. Nick Saban. Winners want to go and play at Alabama. Losers want nothing to do with it. And like Coach Saban says, mediocre players and people, they want to be left alone. They don't want to be coached. Mediocre, average, and ordinary people and players, they want to be left alone. That's what the Rangers dressing room is full of. Leave me alone. I want to make my 10 million, my 5 million, leave me alone. Good to very good players want to be coached. Very good to good want to be coached. And outstanding elite champions want to be told the truth. So to be told the truth, you have to play for a taskmaster like a Nick Saban, like a Bill Belichick, like a Scotty Bowman, like a Pat Riley, like a Mike Ditka, and like a Mike Kennan. It's just the way it is. And that attracts the winner, right? The champion, the cleaner, the rainmaker. They want to be told the truth. They don't have time for politics. They don't have time for whining and crying and complaining. So in your life, what's the meeting after the meeting? If you talk to your kids, what's the meeting after the meeting? Is it an eye roll? This will pass. Don't worry about him. What's the meeting in your marriage after the meeting? Is it like, yeah, we're joined at the hip. We're going to do this together. Your wife respects you. You respect your wife. Or is it, well, I don't know what that was about. What's the meeting after the meeting? In your business, whether you have 2 employees like I do, or 23 like I used to, or you're coaching a T-ball team, what's the meeting after the meeting? What's the meeting after the meeting? It's amazing. I do my charitable work. I coach, my little skating program at the school, my daughter's school, every Tuesday for an hour. It's just power skating. The kids are on the ice for an hour. They're grades 1 to 5, no big deal. But Iron Mike McLean is out there, and I skate their little butts for 60 solid minutes. That's the reason I started that program. I didn't just start it for skills to teach them how to skate. I started it during the China virus for mental and physical health. So I went balls to the wall. We're out there for 55 minutes. We never stop. They're sweating when they come off the ice. A lot of those kids have never been exposed to demanding hard work. So that's the number one thing. Something as simple as that. What's the meeting after the meeting? I have a couple of key parents who help me out, key mums and dads. So the meeting after the meeting in the lobby is like, how was skating? And the kid says, oh, that was brutal again. The meeting after the meeting is, man, Coach McLean's demanding, this is exactly what you need. This is exactly the exercise and fitness you need. That's the meeting after the meeting. That quashes all the whining, the crying, and the excuse making. Same on my Sunday mornings up till Christmas. I run that program. Leanne's son is in the program. Leanne basically organizes that Sunday morning hockey program. But what's the meeting after the meeting? Well, I'm on the ice with those kids for 90 minutes and I'm talking about winning, I'm talking about losing, I'm talking about hard work, I'm talking about mental toughness, I'm talking about punctuality, and I'm working their butts off. And some days I have to stop it, blow it down and say, listen, this is not acceptable effort and execution. And I'll tell these little guys, I'm like, again, they're age 5 to 14. I'm like, if you're not willing to put in championship effort, then go home. And the message is always clear and the players always respond positively. You know what? I got to wake up. I got to work harder. That's coaching, right? Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. I got great assistant coaches who are the second part of the meeting, right? But the biggest part of that meeting is Leanne and another mom who are there down at ice level watching the whole thing. So if a parent like, it's working too hard or Michael's too demanding, all that stuff that happens with coaching is the meeting after the meeting is like Leanne's all in, this other mom's all in. They know the process. They want their children to be part of this process. They know the culture of winning. So they're all in. So when somebody quits or somebody, that's too hard to work or they need more water breaks or whatever the fuck they're talking about, never won anything. Those parents barely get their kid there on time. You've got the meeting after the meeting. Well, that's the way Michael is and that's the way he runs things and that's what we like. And their kids are a part of it. So that's the meeting after the meeting. So that's a short story long about the meeting after the meeting. I bet you've never heard that one before. I pulled that one out yesterday with my champions, and badass Bill Gaw was the one who had that written down because he's building a team, he's part of a team, and the meeting after the meeting, what's going to happen in his latest business, the car wash business, like when he talks about something important to those men. Okay, this is the marketing we're doing. This is the direct mail. This is important. This is important that we capture their contact information. What's the meeting after the meeting now? In the insurance business, it would have been, holy fuck, let's go. He always had the Messier, right? He always had the executive assistant. He has Amanda. She's the meeting after the meeting, but he needs boots on the ground because, he'll rip into one of those guys and he'll be like, this is the way it's done. This is the standard. This is what championships are like. He's going to go all Belichick on those guys. It's just part of his nature, right? And the meeting after the meeting is the secret. That's how great coaches get fired, by the way. That's how a Pat Riley gets fired or a Scotty Bowman or, they're like, what happened? My friend Claude Julien, 11 years in Boston. He gets fired after winning a Stanley Cup a couple years later. And I'm like, Claude, what happened? He's like, the meeting after the meeting, Michael. All of a sudden, everybody was on side. And then a couple of years after winning, the meeting after the meeting was, what was the coach thinking there? Man, I wouldn't have done that. Comfort sets in, complacency sets in, toxic people. And the people around you go lame, like the great Dan Kennedy says. They all go lame in the end. Employees, whatever you want to say, they all go lame and you got to be aware of that. So in Claude's case in Boston, he's like, man, we went from all in to all out and cost him his job. That's the reality in sport. So what will the meeting be for Bill after? That's what he's going to be building. He thinks he's building a car wash. In my mind, he's building the meeting after the meeting. How can he have those boots on the ground guys living and breathing everything that he believes in? That's congruency. That's balls to the wall. I had that in Perth and we won a Barclay Cup. I had that in the barber shop. We were number 1 for 6 years. I had that with Sandra and Susan and Dave Mitchell at McLean Insurance. You want to talk about the meeting after the meeting. They were all in with me. Same thing, I work in my marriage at that. I work with my daughter, having everybody together, all in, all pulling, what do they say? We're all pulling the same way. You know, I'm heading north, we're heading north. Krista's heading north, we're all heading north. Pulling in that same direction. But what's the meeting after the meeting in your life? Man, you can't stack your world with enough champions. Like Jimmy Johnson said to Dan, how the hell did you take the Cowboys from 1-15 to 4 years back-to-back Stanley or Super Bowl champions? How the hell did you do that? And Jimmy Johnson said to Dan, off the cuff, I got rid of all the losers. I got rid of all the losers. And he filled that room with champions that would handle the meeting after the meeting. Emmett Smith, Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, no matter how tough it got, how pissed they were at Johnson, which is a lot, no matter how pissed Brady is, no matter how, it's just like grin and bear it. This is what we need to do. Tolerate it, deal with the devil, because that's how winning's done. The ring is more important than the bitching and moaning. What is the meeting after the meeting in your world? If you want to work with me, there's 3 ways you can do that. Buy my book below, nobullbook.com. It's a physical book, how to not get your ass kicked in business and life. It's almost 300 pages. It's my 25 insider secret rules for living life and doing business on your own terms. It's about personal sovereignty and how I've achieved it. Lots of my wins, my losses, my frustrations, my embarrassments, all to your benefit. 25 different rules. nobullbook.com. Second thing, how we can be joined at the hip, is my monthly paper and ink newsletter, the Michael McLean World Building Letter. I ship that once a month to your home or your business. Badassletter.com. Link is below. Badassletter.com. That beauty is like 22 pages, something like $3.24 a month. Anybody and everybody can afford it. Don't lie to yourself. And then finally, my mastermind, my online digital mastermind. I meet every second Wednesday with my world builders for about 2 hours, sometimes a little more. We do hot seats every week. We work on each other's businesses. Crazy powerful. Badassworldbuilders.com. Apply. We'll see if I'm the right fit. Maybe I'm not. See if you're the right fit. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. And then we make a decision, yes or no, you're in or you're out. Lots of fun either way. Badassworldbuilders.com. That's it for today. My parents are here on February 28th from Canada. I could not be more pumped. I'm not a guy who gets, jazzed up about, everything and anything, but holy shit. I am so excited that my mom and dad, they're 89 years old. We're gonna go watch some baseball games in Fort Myers, watch the Phillies, watch the Red Sox, watch the Twins. We're gonna hang out in the pool with my daughter Emery and my wife Krista. We're gonna go to lunch. We're just gonna have a hell of a time. My parents haven't traveled in 7 years, just simply because of age. But I chartered a jet from Ottawa. They'll be here in 3.5 hours. Leanne is coming with her children. Marc-Andre is coming with his girlfriend for a handful of days. So the whole famdamly, the whole badass famdamly is going to be here for 3-4 days. My parents for 8. So yours relentless is especially yours happy these days. So enjoy it while it lasts. 2 words that changed my life. 2 words that'll change your life. Fix the meeting after the meeting if you have to. Get somebody in there to carry the message to Garcia. Get somebody in there that's joined at the hip with you. Get somebody with you that is bought in 100%. They've gone all in. They've burned the boats. They're willing to take the island with you and make them part of the championship quest you're on. 2 words that changed my life. 2 words that'll change yours. Be relentless.